Alright, let's go and take a look at lesson 2.5. Lesson 2.5 is about compound inequalities. Okay, so compound inequalities can be written using the word and or the word or. Okay, and means that there's an intersection between on the number line, and the word or means that there's no intersection on a number line. So let's take a look at what that means. So let's say that we had a number x is greater than -8 and less than or equal to 4. Okay, so there's a couple things going on here. Okay, the first one is that a number x is greater than -8. Okay, so a number x is greater than -8. So a number x is greater than -8. Okay, it says the word and, which is the main word. We'll write that little symbol, and less than or equal to 4. So they're saying that x is also less than or equal to 4. Okay, so on a number line, if we start at -8, which is over here, okay, it's a closed circle at -8 with all the numbers that are that way of -8. But also recognize that it stops at 4 because it's going to say all the numbers that are less than 4 with an open circle at 4 because there's no equal sign under there. So it's going to be everything in between these values. All right, let's go and take a look at a similar question using the word or. Okay, so if the question says a number y, and I'll write it out, it says a number y is at most 0. Okay, a number y is at most 0 or at least 2. Okay, so it says a number y is at most 0. So we'll say y is at most 0. So is at most is this sign. Okay, 0. So y is at most 0. Okay, or at least 2. So y is at least 2. Okay, so we have something that looks like this. Okay, so when we have the word or, we'll recognize that there's not going to be an intersection in our answer like there was in the last question. So on a number line, we find 0. Okay, it's going to be a closed circle at 0 with all the numbers that are less than 0. Okay, and at 2, it's going to be a closed circle at 2 with all the numbers that are greater than 2. Okay, notice in the last question before this that the intersection was between these two numbers using the word and. Okay, but when we see the word or, it's going to be facing opposite directions. Okay, how about solving compound inequalities that are written like this? -4 is less than x minus 2 is less than 3. Okay, you could think about this as two equations, right? Solving -4 is less than x minus 2 and solving x minus 2 is less than 3, right? So why don't we take a look at it like that this time, and we'll look at it a little bit differently in the next question. Okay, so this is this part of it. Okay, and then we'll also solve this equation that says x minus 2 is less than 3. Okay, so we'll solve two equations, right? So this one is this part of it, and this one is this part of it. Okay. All right, so to solve this, we have to add the 2 to this side, and we get -2 is less than x. And to solve this one, we have to add the 2 to get x is less than 5. Okay. Recognize that you can combine these right, into one answer if you wanted to, saying that negative 2 is less than x, which is from that part, okay, but then x is also less than 5. So you could combine this all in one answer, and you could also just put this on a number line, okay? So this part gives us this, okay? This part gives us this, okay? So we combine it all into one thing, okay? So if we wanted to put this all in a number line, negative 2, open circle, okay? This is what and, right? This is what and would look like. So this is a and inequality. So F5, everything that's less than 5, okay? So everything that's in between both of those values. All right, let's go and take a look at the question again, solving it a little bit different. All right, so if we had this question of negative 3 is less than negative 2x plus 1 is less than 9, less than or equal to 9, okay? Notice that in the way that we solved this before, we said that this was one equation that we would solve, and this was one equation that we would solve. You could still use that way if you wanted to. I'll just show you guys an easier way, maybe a different way of looking at it. So if we knew that we were going to do everything to all sides of the inequality, okay, that means subtract this 1 over here and subtract the 1 over here, because the negative 2x is protected for right now, okay? So negative 3 minus 1 is negative 4, less than negative 2x, less than or equal to 9 minus 1 is 8, okay? So then we see this, and we know that we have to divide by negative 2 onto every side, okay? And then that negative 4 divided by negative 2 is 2. Notice that we flipped the sign because the number we divided by was negative, okay? This crosses out. We got x left in the middle. And 8 divided by negative 2 is negative 4. And we flip the sign. Okay. So looking at this tells us that we could put this on a number line. Okay. What you would want to do also is say that this is the same thing as 2 being less than negative 4 being less than or equal to x being less than 2. Okay, so just flipping this whole thing. Okay, so negative 4 is here with the closed circle at negative 4. Everything that's this way of negative 4. Okay, and x is less than 2. Okay, so the open circle at that. Okay, technically you didn't have to do this step, and if you saw it like this, it would make sense. But because negatives come before positives, that is why I wrote it like this. Okay, so negative 4s come before positive 2s, so that's why I wrote it that way. All right, let's go and take a look at the next question. Okay, in the next question, instead of using and, which is what this kind of inequality would look like, let's use the word or. Okay, so what would that look like? Okay, so let's say that the question says 3y minus 5 is less than negative 8. Okay, less than negative 8. Or, so or is the key word this time. 2y minus 1 is greater than 5. Okay, so we have to solve both of these. Okay, so to solve this one, we have to add the 5 over. Okay, and that gives us 3y is less than negative 8 plus 5, different signs, so subtracting numbers. 8 minus 5 is 3, bigger numbers with 8, so negative 3. And then dividing both sides by 3, y is less than negative 1. Okay, we'll say or, and then we'll solve this